Take a deep breath. Deep conversations are starting.
Hello, everyone. In this episode, I'm with Tara, a beautiful lady. Welcome to Deep Conversations by Breath Hub. And yeah, Tara, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate
thanks
being here.
for your time. You have a beautiful energy, and it's beautiful here in New York. Great weather outside.
Beautiful weather today. Yeah, we
so
got really lucky.
I'll just let you know, first of all, introduce yourself. What do you do and all that. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Tara Bianca, and I'm the owner and creator of a company called Be Light Transformative Therapy. And I've had this company in its name now for about 4 or 5 years. And it started as an in-person practice, so I've been in New York about 23 years now, and I've always been in holistic wellness. And my kind of bread and butter for so many years has been manual therapy, body work, doing movement therapy with people, really getting into the physical, like heavy stuff, right?
Yeah.
The density of being a human being.
Yeah.
And then more recently, that part of my practice has evolved, and over the years I've started to incorporate more breath work, more meditation work, more sound healing. I do work with sound a little bit as well, and vibration. So I have, what brings me to Breath Hub is, I've explored a lot of different styles of breath work in my life. And I know, Nevşah, you were from Turkey, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually studied with Judy Kravitz for a long time doing transformational breath. And I know that's huge in Turkey, so I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of other different styles of breathing too, which I would say fill the scope from working with, again, very physical, physiological, all the way up to this more spiritual, psycho-emotional work.
Ringing. Yeah.
Yes. And what I find with the breathing, I just find it so foundational, primary to everything else that we're doing. For so many years, so I have a background as a dancer too. I was a dancer, and I was always so in my physical body. I was a fitness trainer. I was always focused on the muscles and the flesh and the strength and all these things. And as I evolve, as I age, I realize I've been missing this critical component of going deeper and connecting more foundationally with this primary thing that all beings have to do before they can do anything else, right? The breath comes first, and then everything follows.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's like the biggest lesson for anyone listening to us and anyone interested in, all kinds of being the best version of themselves. Like if you're interested in self-mastery, being the best version of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, on all levels, starts with breathing. And then it's kind of like the mother of it all. It's on top of it all. Like, we need the breath and breath work as an ally with no matter what we're doing, like dance, sports.
Of course.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it's so comical, just on the most basic, again, physiological level. We're always focused on what are we eating, what are we drinking, how are we moving, and this thing that we can't live more than a few moments without, we just take it for granted. We don't think about it, And it can be so much more powerful for us if we can connect with it, if we can harness it.
And it's also very interesting for me. I mean, because I've been researching on breath, working on breath for a long time now. It's also interesting, like how people don't relate it to breathing or breathing issues, like when they feel anxious or when they can't breathe and they have a panic attack. It's like it's the last thing to do to just get a prescriptive medicine. It's obvious that you're getting panicky or anxious because your breath changed, or sleeping disorders. It's obvious that there's something wrong with your breathing, like the first thing, or like mental disorders or depression.
Sure.
It's like, I don't even understand how people miss it. It's like, I mean, because in my own journey, I didn't miss it that much. I mean, I was in, like 25 years ago, in my 20s, I was in deep depression before I started breathwork, and I started yoga, breathwork, meditation all at the same time. And the reason I started breathwork was because during my meditation practice, I was feeling there was something wrong with my breathing. So it's kind of like, for me, how come people don't realize that? It's like,
Well, I think it's cultural too, you know. I think if you've ever studied in India, you've studied a lot of pranayama, I think.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a lot of students now who are in India, actually. And, you know, they tend to come, they've been doing the breath practice their whole life, but they are more curious about the why. You know, their gurus don't teach them the why, they have to discover for themselves.
Yeah.
So, but in speaking to them, it's so cultural for them. It's so obvious that there's a breathing issue. You know, if there is another issue with the physical body, the emotional body, the mental, the psychological, they will evaluate their breathing more and play with the breathing.
First check your breathing, then everything else.
Right, but I have so many clients dealing with this anxiety, the mental strain, the depression, and you know, I feel like my thing lately to be a little bit more physiological with them, since that's where they're coming at me from, right? That's the lens. Is, you know, your condition of your nervous system at any moment in your day really determines your perception of reality, really determines how you move through the world. So if you have this hyper-facilitated nervous system with the anxiety and the fast breathing and the stress, you're going to perceive everything around you as danger, something to defend yourself against, something to run from, something to fight. Whereas if you can tap into that and calm the nervous system, aka focus on your breath, then you change the whole thing. The same reality now becomes totally different.
Yeah,
right?
and also our reality also changes because we're energetic beings.
Right.
It's like you hear it probably thousands of times, but we're energetic beings, and the way our energy vibrates is very much aligned with our breathing. It's like when you're anxious and stressed and breathing in a stressful, like fast breathing or whatever you're doing, unbalanced breathing, you send those energies outside, and then your life brings those experiences.
Exactly.
It's like when I'm like danger, you don't live a calm life. It's like there is real danger in 5 seconds, you know?
Right.
It's like because our lives reflect that. It's like that's why I think it's like to change our life reality, we need to change our energetic system through breathing as well.
100%. I'm 100% with you.
And I'm also like curious about how do you lead your clients? Like first, do you have kind of like an analysis? What do you do? If I come to you and
So it depends, you know, one-on-one is very different than a group experience, obviously. Yeah, so one-on-one, so it's interesting, you know, last year I actually...
Is it more on symptoms, like symptom-based? If I come and tell you, like, I want to work with you, do I tell you, like, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, or I have this in my body, I have that? Like, how does the whole procedure go?
And it depends on the style of breathing that I want to do with you and how and where we're meeting. You know, so my whole practice was in person for 16 years.
Yeah.
Last year I actually had to close down my in-person practice, so I've been doing everything online.
Yeah.
So it changes the assessment and evaluation a little bit, because you're not present with them. There's a different energy and a different kind of exchange, and you can only perceive so much through the little box, you know, the little screen on the computer. But I still love to just observe people breathing. I do a thorough intake with people. I want to know, how are you sleeping? What are you eating? What's your exercise regimen like during the day?
Yeah.
Do you get short of breath? Do you have any breath awareness?
Yeah.
Do you suffer with anxiety? Things like this.
Yeah.
And I am really pro education. You know, it's nice to know the how and to give people exercises, but I feel like unless they have a good understanding of the why, they won't be
exactly.
What is the word?
Yeah,
I'm
why
looking for?
and the what? Why and the what? It's like, what are we going to do here? What are we doing here? And why are we doing it?
The intention is everything. So I have them set short-term goals. We set long-term goals. What do you want to achieve? And then we base the exercises off of that. I'll do some tests, some exercises with them to see how they respond. We always pause, eyes closed. Okay, what are you feeling in your body now? What shifted in the last 5 minutes? Do you feel any change in the physiology, in the mood, the mental state, the emotional state? And then really feeding that back to them, you know? Okay, so I hear you say that you feel so much more calm. Look, that only took 5 minutes. So how are we going to take this exercise now and implement it into your daily practice so that you now have this tool?
Goals and intentions.
Well, and then you're not reliant on anyone. It's so self-empowering to know I have this thing that I can do. It takes 2 to 5 minutes. It resets my nervous system. It changes my whole reality around me.
Right, yeah, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, I mean, you can go forever. You know, I've done, 60, 90-minute sessions with people having them breathe, you know, but it's not necessary. I know that we're in a world where everyone's busy running in a million directions. So with my work now, it's really about your breathing is only really functional if you are also able to take it into your walking, waking life. You know, it's not just
Exactly.
about
Yeah,
sitting down to do a
exactly.
10-minute breath practice.
Yeah.
How are you breathing when you're walking to the grocery store, when you're driving your
Yeah,
car?
that breath awareness, like
Yeah.
having that breath
Right,
awareness.
interacting with your spouse, your significant other, your children. What is your breath doing in that moment that is shaping how
And
you're
it takes
interacting?
time, right? It's
Oh,
like
sure.
day after day. I mean, it's like these are both necessary, like keeping this in mind. And also, like, this can happen only if you do daily breathwork sessions. It's
Yeah.
like the more you do breathwork, the more you become aware. And then you're like, I feel anxious. What is it in my breathing? Like, the breathing is changing. Like, I breathe faster. I'm breathing more shallow. That's why I'm anxious. Like, what's going on with my breath? What's going on with my life? Or in a relationship, when you are tense, and when you maybe react or say something you don't want to say, and then you're like, wait a second, like, what's going on with my breathing, like with my physiology, with my psychology? It all starts with awareness. And I think to gain that awareness in the first place, we need to start by practicing breath work every day, like breath work and meditation. First comes breath work, I think. I'm a strong believer that psychology is a byproduct of physiology. I
Yes.
say it the whole time. It's like, until our physiology, chemistry is like,
Yes.
healthy and fine, you can't manage your psychology.
Yes.
It's like, I love meditation. I love, doing meditations, and I'm a meditation teacher and all that. But I teach my students breath work before meditation because it's much more easier. Or mind work. I'm also a DiMartini method facilitator. I use the work and many other, transformational mind transformation tools. I start with breath work. Why? Because it's easier to work with people who've done breath work. They have more awareness in their system. It's like, I mean, even with the DiMartini method, it's harder for people if they don't have any awareness. It takes me hours to get them there. If they've done breath work every day for a couple of months, it's like,
Yeah.
it's this quick.
Yes. Awareness is
It's
everything.
kind of
for
like,
sure.
and awareness equals to breath. I think, like,
Yeah, it's
know,
everything. And I
it's
think
brilliant.
what you said is right. You need to start somewhere. So you need to have that daily sit down for 10 or 15 minutes and focus on it.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. You put a person in front of you and you just say the word breath and people change the way they're breathing. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Just like the feeding the
just-
word sometimes changes how people are breathing because it draws your attention. And now that your attention is there, change can happen. Change is possible.
and it's all about that, like drawing the attention.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
bringing people there, like, get back to your breathing.
And I'm also with you on this psychophysiological connection, of course.
Yeah.
Only because I've seen that result with so many people I've worked with or people that my teachers have worked with, where we've been talking a lot lately about mental anxiety as not a psychological or mental disorder, but as a physiological one. What is going on with your breathing? Let's change your breath first before we start to dig into the ancient wounds, which can be contributing,
Yeah.
of course. Of course, the past trauma is going to play a role in it. But at what moment in your life did your breathing change to even precipitate this cycle of anxiety
Yeah.
that you've been stuck in for so many years?
Yeah. And
So
it's in the physical form.
yeah, it's in the
actually.
physical form. So using breathwork is powerful, I think, for dealing with past trauma and just like changing that vibration, changing that initial frequency, how it got set into your physiology in the first place, how it started to shape your posture, how it started to shape how you interact with
Yeah.
others.
So as you're listening to us, as you're listening to Tara, please ask those questions to yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah, if you have some past trauma, you have issues with your family, with your relationships, just start noticing that in your body, in your system, because it is in the physical form.
Yeah,
You are
absolutely.
experiencing it on the physical and breathing form, although it's also on the mental.
100%.
And also, what I have been realizing, it's not easy for people to just sit down and connect with themselves mentally, but it's easier for people to connect with themselves physically.
Yes.
Like with breathing, it's easier. Like
Yes.
it's like breathing, physical body, mental body, they're all one, merged into each other. But for us to tap into all kinds of past trauma and, all kinds of stuck energies, it's easier to do it through breathing and the body experience. It's so hard to do it on the mental
So
level.
hard.
That's why, like, I've seen people trying to do that. Like, I have a few friends in London, and they've been working with their minds for a long time, and I'm like, and they're not practicing breath work. And I'm like, when are they gonna get it? It's like, it's like, it's taking forever. This is not to judge anyone or something, but it's taking forever when you do it. And it's like, you don't ground it unless you're breathing. You don't ground that you do all those mind work, and, you get to some place, but just because you have breathing issues, you don't ground that. It's a pity that people, very awakened people, like very good, great-minded people, like very focused and clear-minded people, still have loads of problems in their lives, like health issues and relationship issues, and because they don't ground that energy. It's a pity,
Yeah, it's such a pity. So sad.
Just because they don't breathe right and bring that into their lives, it's gonna just take a few hours to if they practice breathwork. It's just. I mean, the thing is, for me, the best things are hidden in life. Isn't that amazing? It's like, do you think of that yourself? It's like, if people knew what breathwork was and what it could do to their lives, don't you think like millions would rush into breathing sessions? Isn't it funny that still,
there's a
not
disconnect,
many people
a strong
are,
disconnect.
Not many people are using breathwork. I mean, there are even not many people practicing breathwork as much as meditation, which is, meditation is very hard if you're breathing dysfunctional. You needed to start from the start. It's like, we're doing this as humans.
I don't know what it is. I think maybe we started talking about breathwork in the mainstream just too late in the game, or I don't know, like the information kept getting suppressed. There's such a disconnect from...
But that's the thing. It's like the most valuable stays hidden.
I get what you're saying. I know. But I mean, and even like in Western culture, for example, like I literally was just, I don't even want to go into this arena, but I just read an article in The Atlantic about COVID-19, right? And I was reading kind of like where they've evolved over the year in terms of understanding long COVID symptoms. And I must have been reading this article for about a half an hour, and it wasn't until the middle where they talk about this doctor having an epiphany, like, oh, it's a respiratory problem. Why don't we try breath work with these people? But it like is not obvious for some reason. I think there's a bad connotation around breath work in the Western society where they think it's this very like ethereal, very woo-woo. And I think it just requires a lot of re-education process. That's why a project like this that is a global intention to connect people with this type of work is so important and so powerful, because we have to do the re-education piece.
Yeah, we're now getting ready to invest on more research so that we could get FDA approval. Like we're on that path, because it's like, it's time. I mean, it's time people got it. I mean, I have seen people healing like thyroid problems, and my mom like healing migraine just by breath work, like
hormone imbalance,
like 32 years of chronic migraine. Seeing tens of doctors not getting healed, and doctors saying things like this is psychological, and seeing my mom suffer from chronic migraine for months after months and days after days. She fully healed it, and she hasn't been having any headaches since like 11, 12 years. And that's like,
I think it's amazing.
And we're just, missing that whole thing,
When you consider the burden, the overwhelming burden for people is this chronic inflammatory degenerative disease profiles. It's like the breathing taps into that autonomic nervous system. You're dealing with counteracting that inflammatory response in the body. So much of what we call disease today is just this hyper facilitated inflammatory response, right? This over facilitated immune response. And I think the breathing is going to play such a huge role in autoimmune disease and chronic pain, like what your mother was going through.
And it's an ancient science. It's like, it's an ancient science we forgot. And when you look at, I don't know if you did any research on that.
Oh, I have a lot of research.
When you look back in history, breathing has been used, like it's been like kind of like a diamond or gem, something like people got aware of it, started using it, and they lost it, and then started using it and then lost it. It's like this wave in the ocean. Like, why do we lose track of it? It's like it's this
But I agree with you 100%. So it makes me so thrilled to know that you guys are also going to be starting to maybe invest in doing some of the research.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
now on it. We're not on top of it. Like we're and that's one of the reasons why I'm in New York, basically. Like we're connecting with different advisory firms and checking how we can do that because it's time. It's like we talk about it from my own experience. We have the breathing sciences school. We already have a lot of research, on respiratory, problems and this and that. We already have all those information. We just have to gather them together and just tell people this is it, this is the new science.
Yeah.
It's like this is it. You can heal more than 200 symptoms you have without taking prescriptive medicine. I know you don't like me for that, but you know what to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is essential because, again, that Western mindset is more mental, like you said, more intellectual. Show me the evidence and then I'll believe it. Or show me the evidence and then it'll be worthy of my time to even explore it, right? People need that strong why. And I think in this culture, scientific evidence is a very strong why. And so I do think that is growing, and I'm glad that that's where the focus is because it's essential.
And we already have some scientific evidence.
Oh, yeah,
of
course.
The reason being, like what we call dysfunctional breathing habits is basically like either hypocapnia or hypercapnia.
Yes,
like those are respiratory symptoms.
Blood gas
what
issues.
we call, dysfunctional breathing habits or wrong breathing habits. It's already in medical books.
Literature. Yeah.
It's hypocapnia, it's hypercapnia. Just check out the symptoms because of hypocapnia. Those are the symptoms that can be healed by regular breath work. That's it. We just have to combine that. We already have all the research, so it's.
But this is
crazy.
the problem too. I find in the world is this
Connection.
Everyone's dissecting and everyone's like putting the microscope up to their own thing, and then we forget to bring it back together. We lose the integration piece. That's why modern functional medicine, integrative medicine is so important because they're finally talking to the holistic practitioners who have been working with that sort of more palliative side of things, of working on natural cures and natural treatments for people, and finally combining it with like, oh, this is cool that we have all this modern equipment to test and see what's going on in our body, but it's not pharmaceutical drugs that are going to get us there. We have all this other stuff available to us that we can pick out of the toolbox and have such a massive impact, and it's things that people can do for free in their own home, it's so empowering not to have to rely on someone else to do your own healing.
And besides all, like we are at a point where we definitely need to find natural tools to heal ourselves because it's like, I mean, this is not to say medicine or prescriptive medicine or this and that is bad, but it's like if you're taking something into your body that is changing your chemistry, and if you're benefiting from that, it is going to cause a drawback. So every time you take a medicine or some pill or something into your body, because it's changing your already existing state, and it's actually creating kind of like a magical state because you're not in that state, but you're taking a pill like psychedelics and you're changing your state, it is going to have an effect. And it's kind of like, we need to find ways to be healthy naturally other than taking those pills.
Well, just because the body has to take the load constantly, right? Like,
to
how are you
keep
going
it
to
in
process
balance,
it? How are you going to process it? How are you going to move it? Like, to keep taking is not the solution ultimately. It's like what you said, it creates a false state almost.
It's
this
pure
is not
magic.
me, this is a false state.
It's magic
that I can accomplish when I take this thing, right?
When I say this to people, in the past, when you look at those history books, you see all those wizards and witches, and they are the pharmaceutical companies right now. They are the wizards and the witches that combine all of those and create magic formulas. It's pure magic. And a little black magic as well. Because it is changing your whole state. And it's not natural. And you start experiencing another state which is gonna hit you from the back. It's like, that's what black magic is all about actually. I mean, it's like you get into a state where you are in this magical state, and because it's not real, then there is this black side haunting you. And that's what happens. It's like, yeah, it's sad
Well,
watching.
it's not true transformation, right? Because it's not coming from the inside out. It's
Yeah.
something you're taking from the outside in. So it's not a sustainable practice, really.
Yeah.
You know, so
And
really
I'm
looking
going to
for
ask you, because you
sustainability.
already have a lot of students and everything.
Yeah.
Why do you think is the reason? Is it because people don't have time? Is it because people don't have awareness? Like, why do people, instead of choosing a natural path, and I'm going to just give you an example of my own past story. I was in a deep depression in my 20s, and I had the option of seeing a psychiatrist or, healing it myself. I thought to myself, like, this thing that I'm experiencing is caused because of me. Like, I am causing this. So I'm the only one who can heal this and change this. So I resisted going to a psychiatrist, and so this and that, and I started meditation, and I started yoga and breathwork, because I knew, like, I did this to myself, I can heal it myself. There is no thing from the outside that can change this. If I can change this, if I can change my state myself. So my question for you is, why do you think people don't go on that path and think like, yeah, I'm going to take full responsibility, and I'm going to just, whatever I'm experiencing right now, I'm going to take full responsibility and deal with it myself, and just going out and taking a pill and running? Is it because they don't have time or awareness
Yeah,
or
you
knowledge?
just said it. Self-responsibility. I mean, it requires you to take responsibility, and it requires you to face whatever is inside of you, right? And it's saying,
But
like,
the thing is, what's the reason? Why do you think people don't have that self-responsibility? That's the question.
well, first
Is it
of all,
the
you've been
culture?
through
Is
the
it
self-transformation process. It takes time, right? And it
Yeah.
takes discipline, and it's not a fast switch. It's something
Yeah.
that you're in for a while. And you also probably know and have experienced personally, as I have, there's ups and there's downs.
Yeah.
And when people
Yeah.
are in the downswing, they don't see the hope of coming back up again. A lot of people don't want to go through this process because they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
But
right?
we
They
can
don't have
teach
that
them.
clarity.
Like, I think we're teaching them right now.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
like a wave. Healing is not linear,
is
but
not
it's kind
linear.
of like a wave.
Yes.
And it's okay.
But if you're sitting by yourself in it and you've never been taught any of these tools, again,
Yeah.
maybe culturally it hasn't been passed down to you, and you try something and you feel like you fail only because you're going into one of those dips, it's very hard for that person then to self-motivate, to take responsibility again, say, well, I'm going to keep doing this thing, because in that moment they're perceiving it as not working. They're not anticipating that dip to turn back into a new climax for them, or a new beneficial experience for them, And I think time is another big thing. Part of the reason that we're stuck in chronic inflammation is because we're running all the time. We can't
Yeah.
take the break. So with my students all the time, I say, you guys practice every day, 1,000,000 times a day, getting hyper facilitated. You're so good at getting into a stress response, but you spend 0.0001% of your day trying to go into down regulation, trying to go into recovery, trying to go into rest. There's no balance whatsoever, So it's really about saying, culturally, I think it's happening, at least in big cities. I see it in New York in the holistic wellness sector, and even starting to spread into the business sector and the corporate sector. People are no longer in that no pain, no gain, or I'll sleep when I'm dead mode. They're starting to really understand, like, sleep, recovery is critical for health and also critical for productivity. So these people who are obsessed with being as productive as possible, how are you going to do that if you are never resting and recovering, resetting, down regulating, rejuvenating, truly regenerating the cells in your body,
it's a
moving the
balance.
lymph, draining the brain, resetting. That's why we sleep. So I think that's important, and I think it is happening, but it's slow. You know how this works. So, this is a mecca, New York City, and I see it slowly. Over the last 25 years, I see it very slowly spreading. But, last month I actually moved out of New York City. I'm back home with my mom for a while, which is more of a suburb. It's outside of New Haven, Connecticut, which is not the middle of nowhere. I'm only about 2 hours from New York, but I already see that suburban mentality. It hasn't hit them yet. Like, the wave is so slow to reach the masses. It's very slow.
And maybe it won't, and maybe it's not needed, but still, it's like just taking the time to, just to balance it out. And that's an understanding, I'm going to get sick if I don't stop.
Yep.
I'm going to get sick if I don't, just take time to balance it out and take time to breathe and connect with myself. I think just understanding that is a big thing.
And I think sometimes it takes that actually, you know, like how many of us wait till we have that massive health crisis to start making changes. And so, you know, if that's the path that you're on, that's the path that you're on. You know, I kind of went through a version of that with chronic digestive things, massive anxiety, a lot of depression like you had. And I think a lot of people, they have to get into that. Oh, I have an autoimmune disorder now. Oop, you know, there's like some beginning stages of whatever.
Time to change.
It's time to change. Now I am motivated. Now I have a strong why, you know. But until that strong why, that strong intention comes, it's so easy to just stay in autopilot because you're kind of comfortable. It's not bad enough to want to change, you know. So,
you have such an amazing energy. Thank you. This has been one of the most amazing conversations I had. Thank you.
Excellent.
And I'm going to ask you one last question. If there was one thing you wanted humanity to know before you die, what would that be?
This is the pressure is on. If there was one thing I wanted humanity to know before I die.
There was one thing you wanted them to understand, what would that be?
That we're stronger together, that we're stronger when we're heart-centered, that we're stronger when we can see our similarities and see the humanity in each other and stop judging each other by the outside facade and really try to connect with that spirit essence, I think. I'm getting emotional.
And now we're going to cry. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the purest version of a mission.
Yeah, right.
And it's the best words I've heard in a long time. Yeah. Together we're strong.
Yeah, together we're stronger.
Understanding that, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get together.
For sure.
Thank you, Tara.
Thank you so much.
It's amazing
Nevşah.
knowing
this was
you.
So nice.
You're a gift.
Yeah. So nice to sit and speak with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so ending a conversation with another sister here. Thanks for watching us and thanks for listening to us. I'm going to be with you in the next episode of Deep Conversations by Breath Up.